Well, hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Faith UB podcast. I'm Pastor Matt McEwen from the UB Church in Holly Hill, and as always, we are joined by the senior pastor at Faith UB, Pastor Josh McEwen.
How you doing?
It's a wonderful day.
It is a great day.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on at the church.
Sure.
So, you guys have a homeschool co-op that meets at the
Yes.
church. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's an awesome ministry. We've got here at the Holly Hill campus, we have UBIC Academy, and then at the Port Orange campus, we have UBIC Full Steam. It's a homeschool co-op group that's led by several ladies from within the church, but you don't have to be affiliated with the church at all to be a part of the homeschool co-op.
So they meet at the church?
Yes, every Monday. Typically, I mean, every now and then they have some time off, but it's usually every Monday, and it starts at about 9, and it goes like a regular school day, usually till 3 or 3:30, whenever they finish. But they do classes there for science and art and music and foreign language, and I lead a Bible class there. That's what starts the day at 9 o'clock every Monday.
Well, that's awesome. We had friends growing up, very close friends. Well, and a lot of our family, a lot of our cousins were all homeschooled. And really, if you talk to somebody about homeschooling, the only negative that someone used to be able to bring up was, well, the kids just don't have interaction with other
Sure,
people.
that socialization,
and,
yeah.
and that's just not true anymore.
No, not with these co-ops and stuff. And actually, some of our relatives that you were talking about, they were a part of the homeschool co-op, 30 years ago when it was at Faith. So
Wow.
It's kind of cool that it's coming back again. And this is the second year that it's been held at the church since, it had left, years ago.
Wow, I like that. It's almost like kind of a resurrection of a ministry.
Yeah, it really is. It's neat. It's cool.
So tell me a little bit about something else that's been going on at the church, and not for very long. It's still kind of a new thing, and that is you guys are doing a food pantry.
Yeah, that's actually, we're really excited about that. The Holly Hill Church, has done the food pantry for almost 10 years. And maybe a little over a year ago, not quite a year and a half, they started doing a drop location at the Port Orange Church. And so it started off kind of really small, and now it's just about as big as what we can handle. So it's the first and the third Friday of every month, and it's from 10 to 11. And usually it seems like we serve about 100 to 115 cars, depending on how much food that we're able to give away, but it's always at least 100, sometimes up to 115. And man, we usually have all 100 cars come through by 10:20. So I mean, it's
Wow.
a pretty busy thing, and it's really cool. It's allowed us to connect with the city of Port Orange in a real way and meeting a need, which is kind of cool.
As people do this food pantry thing, do they actually have to get out of their cars, or
No, it's
they
totally,
stay in their car?
Stay in their car. It's totally drive-through.
Wow.
So it's real easy and convenient. You just pull in, and you're ushered into one of two lanes, and then you kind of curve yourself around the bend, and they load up dry goods, and at one stop meat and frozen items at another, and then dairy and frozen food, vegetables, that kind of thing at the last stop.
Wow, why don't you give us the church street address, just so that we know here going in,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to participate.
It's Faith UB, and it's at 4700 South Clyde Morris Boulevard in Port Orange. We're almost right across the street from the city center circle. There's Palmer College that's directly across the street, but we're almost on the corner of Willow Run and Clyde Morris.
Wow. So this food pantry thing, not to, to talk about ancient history or to embarrass you at all, but it was really your vision 10 years ago to bring the food pantry, to make it a part of our church here at Holly Hill. And now we've kind of taken it down to Port Orange, where you are senior pastor. And I just think that's kind of cool, where you had this idea of, hey, there's a small food pantry in town. They can't really do everything that they need to do because they just don't have the help. And it has really grown from that vision of bringing it from the smaller location here to the church, and now to our church in Port Orange. I mean, that's kind of cool if you think about it.
Yeah, it's really neat. And I mean, ultimately what started the whole process was when I was diagnosed with cancer and couldn't work my outside job other than preaching. And so I was kind of still weak and not back 100% on my feet yet, and ended up filling in as an interim pastor for a church whose pastor passed away kind of down the street. And ultimately the church ended up closing when his wife also passed away about a year later. And they had that food pantry ministry, and it was sort of like, man, I just hate to see that that die because it was such a vital ministry. It was much smaller. It's grown into, this huge thing now. But it's really cool to kind of see where it started and where God has taken it from there.
Well, and that reminds me, if people come to Faith UB to your services, the 105-year-old piano that was
Yes.
down there at that church that was sort of given to you, as that lady passed away. That originally, for several years was here at the Holly Hill Church, and now it's down there with you at the Port Orange Church.
Yes,
it's kind of cool.
It's a really neat instrument. Nice big kind of baby grand piano.
Yeah, and it really is 105 years old, and
Yep.
it gets used every week.
Every Sunday.
That's pretty awesome. So talk to me about your Sunday services. You actually have two services, and do they have their own individual flavor to
Totally,
them?
completely. Yeah, it's other than the message is relatively similar. The services themselves are completely different. The 9 o'clock service is what I would call ultra traditional.
Okay.
From the standpoint of, if you were in an old church 50 years ago and you wish that that's the way we still did church, it's 3 hymns, an offering, and a message. And so, to be honest, it kind of appeals to a wide variety of audience. If somebody is wanting a quick service, I mean, it's only about 45 or 50 minutes long. It's never even a full hour. But then it's just all traditional. We do 3 hymns. They're accompanied by an organ and a piano.
Nice.
And there's the offering. We do communion the first Sunday of every month. Kind of in a traditional style where communion is served to the congregation, and like I said, ultra traditional. And then our 10:30 service is much more contemporary. It would be music that you hear on the radio, and it's kind of like a few songs up front, some announcements and a greeting. There's a children's message. Then the children are ushered to kids' church, and then we have the message. And then we always close with worship and prayer time at the end. And communion is done in that service every single week.
There's been several studies with regard to like worship music that people like and prefer. And what people are finding is you tend to really enjoy something that's different than what you grew up with.
Sure.
And so when churches began to be a little more contemporary and modern in their worship music, people were excited about it because it was different from what they grew up with. But studies are showing now that younger people are really having a craving for some of the hymns that we used to do because it's different than what they grew up with. If they grew up in a more contemporary setting, my own children have been to hymn sings recently where my son, who's 16 years old, loves to sing the song "In the Garden." That we just,
Yeah.
they didn't grow up with that kind of thing because by the time we had them, we were doing all contemporary stuff. So it's really interesting the way that a more traditional service is sometimes ministering to people who are a little younger, which is kind of cool.
And boy, the message in some of those hymns are so powerful, and I love it that we're able to offer a traditional service so that we can still use those hymns that some of them are hundreds of years old.
Right. And I actually like, because you and I are both musicians, I actually like that you're doing the hymns in their original context. Because I think a lot of churches' answer to doing hymns is to do the old hymn in kind of a modern way or a modern instrumentation.
Yeah.
And that's cool, and I enjoy doing that. But I think it's kind of nice that you guys have a service where if people like that traditional thing, you're getting it with the piano and the organ. You're getting it the way that we used to
that's the way
sing.
you're getting it.
You're sort of, making church great again, so to
It is,
speak.
and it's fun. I mean, it's kind of it's neat. It's a smaller attended service, but it's something that we certainly enjoy and we're going to keep.
Wow. So you do something a little bit different on one of your Sundays where you do what some churches would call a potluck dinner. In the United Brethren tradition, we always call that a carry-in dinner.
Sure.
So you do a carry-in dinner at some point. Tell me when you do that and what all that involves, because that to
Absolutely.
me, when you get together and share a meal with someone, to me that you're automatically making people closer together.
Well, it's absolutely biblical too. I mean,
Sure,
we're called to break bread and fellowship together, and it sort of started because we've got these 2 services, which ultimately turn you into two churches.
Right.
Really.
We
And,
have the same kind of thing
yeah,
here.
and so the first service people don't get to know the second service and vice versa. So on the third Sunday of every month, we do what we call an all-church combined service at 10:30.
That's cool.
And so there's no first service. Everybody meets together, and you get to fellowship together as an entire congregation. And then immediately following, that we have the carry-in dinner. So, what we do is I provide the main meat item and bring that in, and then you can bring a side to share, a dessert, bread, that kind of thing. And we get together, and it's really, I'm pleased. It's a good turnout. Pretty much everybody that comes on that third Sunday stays for that fellowship dinner, and it's just a great way of getting to know each other more.
I like that a lot. Speaking of food, because we love food in church work, you do something kind of special. I think it's once a month, called Lunch with the Pastor.
Yeah.
So tell me about that, because I may want to implement such a thing.
Oh, you should. It's fun. It gives you an excuse to go to a restaurant. But no, yeah, we do a Lunch with the Pastor. It seems like at most everything that we do at the church, it's done in the way of a Bible study or things like that, which is great. It's awesome. But I really enjoy just those pure fellowship times where you can just get to know someone more. And so, we started this Lunch with the Pastor. So my wife and I, we go to a restaurant once a month. It's usually the third or fourth Thursday, depending on the church schedule. And we pick a restaurant like Cheddar's. And we go there it's great. And they got a new menu now that has like a little lunch menu that has $5.99, $6.99, $7.99 options.
I like that.
And so it's affordable, and we go there from like 11:30 to 1, something like that. And just whoever wants to come can come, and we sit at a table and just eat lunch and get to know each other.
So you literally just sort of post up at a table, and people just can come in and hang out.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's the way it works.
I've never heard of such a thing. I think it's really cool.
You got to be careful on the restaurant you pick. Cheddar's usually at that time isn't crazy busy, so it's real easy to kind of not know who all is going to come.
Right.
But if you pick someplace really busy, you might have to try to get a sign-up sheet or something. But for the time being, we're just saying, hey, come on, and whoever comes, we just sit and eat and talk. It's great.
I like that.
That's awesome.
There's also something kind of special that you guys do called a Fifth Sunday Sing, and I'm assuming that happens only when there's 5 Sundays in a month, and it's on that fifth Sunday.
Correct.
So what is that?
Yeah, it's sort of reminiscent of my life here. We used to do Fifth Sunday Sings at UBIC Holly Hill back in the day, where you would pick kind of your favorite song to sing. And so we just sort of, took that old title, and anytime there's 5 Sundays in a month, during the 10:30 service, it's a complete worship service experience. So it's instead of a sermon, there'll be usually 2 to 4 object lessons that involve the entire congregation. They'll come up almost like little stations where each group, the service, the congregation's divided into 3 or 4 different groups, and they go up and they do these little object lessons, either one at a time or combined as individual groups, and sort of intermittently placed in there between just a whole bunch of awesome worship music. Wow. So it's just a worship service, and it's something that at least the congregation at Faith just love. They just absolutely love having it.
Well, there's one more thing that I wanted to just go over, especially if people are watching this and maybe they're not familiar with the history of Faith UB. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that church where you are pastor was started as kind of a church plant from the UB church here in Holly Hill. And I know, and for people that don't know, so we're brothers, and before you were born, we lived in the church building.
Yeah.
When I was the only child, as the oldest of 3 boys in our family, we lived in a part of the church while our father was pastor there. I think the church was started by our great uncle Virgil, who founded this church. And so give me a little bit of that history, and what is it like to be the pastor now at a church that has, well, your great uncle and your father were both pastors there. What's it like to kind of be another kind of pillar of our family in the pastorate there.
It is such a blessing, and it was the church was founded by Virgil Hall, and just like most church plants, he took some people from the Holly Hill Church to go help plant it, and we still have a couple founding members still at the church, Susie
Right.
and Ernie Pyle. Ernie came over with Virgil to help start the church, and it floated around the Daytona area for a while, and eventually, after about 2 years of renting locations, it planted itself right where it is today at Clyde Morris.
And what year was that?
That would have been 74, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken. It would have been
right.
around 74, and our dad, Chuck McEwen, was the first pastor at that location. And sort of just a kind of a neat story. We bought a Presbyterian church that was sort of I call it like a Lego church. At the time, they were big into church plants, and they had these kind of put together churches that you could, paint by number, type of thing.
Wow.
And so after they were done with it, they took it down, and we bought it, moved it over there. That was the first sanctuary. But yeah, he was, our dad was there for several years. I was actually dedicated. My baby
Wow.
dedication was done in that church. And 40 years later, I'm the senior pastor, which is really kind of cool. It's like once again kind of all come back full circle. But it's a great little church. We sort of kind of say that we're the church that cares. We really want to give back to the community and show God's love in a practical way. Where our theme this whole year is how to be a disciple, and so what it means to actually physically be the hands and feet of Christ to the area that He has called us to.
Well, and how appropriate that you guys have been doing things like this homeschool co-op and the food pantry, where you really are doing that. You're
Yeah.
reaching out to the community in a very physical way. That is something that I would say that I can really, as someone who is not a part of the Port Orange Church, something that I can brag on them about, and it doesn't feel weird because I'm a bit of an outside voice to say that this is a church that cares. It's a church that reaches out to the community. It's a church that's very real. There's no kind of putting on airs or anything. I mean, pretty much what you see is what you get.
Yep.
This is your pastor.
That's right.
Beard and Hawaiian shirt and all. I mean, there it is. It's very real, and I can honestly say that if I didn't have a church home, if I wasn't here at this church, I would be over at Port Orange. I'd be over at that church because it's good. Not only do I know the pastor, I mean he's a brother of mine by blood, but also he was here for 10 years, maybe more. On staff here at our church at Holly Hill. I've sat under his preaching and teaching. He's solid, and it's definitely something I could say that if you're looking for a church home, then I think Faith UB is where you need to be. I think there's a lot of discontent with some of the consumerism about churches nowadays, where people kind of shop for churches like we shop on Amazon. And
Yeah.
What's cool about going to Faith UB is, number one, it's not a huge place where you're just going to be a number or a statistic. People are going to know you, and I think that's a very attractive thing. So since it's not, a mega church, you're going to get that kind of personal attention and personal relationship. You actually get to talk to the pastor. You don't have to sort of make a million appointments and you never actually get to the senior pastor. So just the size and the culture of what you're creating down there at Faith UB is really awesome. It makes it to where you feel very much a part of a family.
It
there.
is. It's very much a family, for sure.
So if you were going to give just kind of a 20-second commercial, if you were going to say, hey, if you're looking for a church, you ought to choose our church, why would that be?
I think that, again, I think there's other churches out there that are great.
Sure.
But absolutely, like you said, at Faith UB, you're going to instantly feel connected. We really try very hard to engage all of our visitors, anybody that comes in an effort to try to make them feel at home with us. And we're not a judgmental church. We absolutely preach the gospel, and right is right and wrong is wrong. But we absolutely know that all of us have our own unique struggles with sin and things that we deal with. So I think we're understanding, we're welcoming, and like I said, hopefully when you come in, you feel at home.
Awesome. Something that we'll talk about on the next episode of the Faith UB podcast is you have a biker group at your church.
Yes, we do.
Hence the beard. And we'll talk about that next. I don't know how many churches have a biker group, but this one does. We'll talk about that next time. Once again, I'm Pastor Matt McEwen at the Holly Hill UB Church. Pastor Josh McEwen, Senior Pastor at Faith UB in Port Orange. We thank you for being with us, and go to the church website. What's the website for the Faith?
Yeah, faithub.com.
faithub.com. Go there, get information, give him a call, meet him at Cheddar's, do whatever you got to do, but you need to be a part of this church and a part of this family. So thank you for joining us. God bless you. We'll see you next time.